Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Focus Astronomy's Star Stream. This is a live virtual star party that takes place right here online, where we stream live images from our telescope to you and everybody across the world. So for those of you who are joining us tonight, thanks very much for being here. We appreciate it. We do this not every Friday. I'm sorry. I do the Skywatcher What's Up webcast as well every Friday. So bouncing between two different types of casting gets a little elaborate after a while. But anyway, tonight we are actually going to be doing a live virtual star party. We're joined by my good friend Trevor Jones from AstroBackyard, which I'm sure many of you know. I'm going to go ahead and pop Trevor up there. There's Trevor up in the corner. He's broadcasting from Canada. I'm in Arizona. The telescope is in California, so we're spanned over 3,000 miles to make this happen. And there you can see that is our webcam for the Falling Eagle Observatory, which is hosted at Skies Away. Skies Away is a remote hosting site, like I said, in Bradley, California, not far from Paso Robles. That is Bortle 2 skies out there. And then these are actually our dual Esprit 150 refractors that are out there. We will be using the farthest telescope. Hopefully by next month we'll actually have a dedicated camera just for that telescope. But we'll be using the North Pier, which is the furthest from the camera. And then my buddy David, who's probably watching tonight, our backup telescope. His is the closest to the camera right there. David actually works for NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory, so he might be cruising around with his scope as ours is moving. But anyway, enough about me chatting up a storm here. Hey, Trevor, how you doing this evening? Thanks for spending the evening with me.
Yeah, of course, man. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to observe through these scopes under Bortle 2 skies. I can't stop looking at that live feed of the observatory because the other telescope just woke up as you started talking, and I was like, okay, are you doing that, or is someone else controlling the other one, or what's going on? But that piqued my interest.
Yeah, no, this is pretty serious hardware. If anybody's done astrophotography, obviously it's very serious stuff that you're doing anyway. It's fairly elaborate, and Trevor would absolutely know this because you do it all. I wouldn't be. Do you have your stuff running right now outside?
No, it's
Oh, okay.
cloudy and snowy and cold.
Oh, okay. Well, it's perfectly clear and probably cold in California, but they don't know what snow is in this area, but lots of dew. Um, so to give you guys a rundown of the rig tonight, because I know there's a lot of astronomers out there. We all like talking shop. I know Trevor and I have been on phone calls where it's only supposed to be a 5-minute question and it turns into a whole shop talk. Again, we are running the North Telescope, which is the furthest one from the camera way back in the back there. That is a Skywatcher Esprit 150, which Trevor is also fairly in tune with. This one is using a ZWO 6200 one-shot color camera. Not one-shot, this is the monochrome one. So monochrome, if you're not really sure what that is, it's here's one right here. Very big, full-frame CMOS camera. This is a one-shot color version I've got right there. Big, bad camera. In front of it, this weird like disc thing that you guys might be seeing, that is the filter wheel. That's an FLI center position, center line filter wheel with 8 filters in there. Luminance, red, green, blue, hydrogen alpha, 5 nanometer, 3 nanometer oxygen 3, 5 nanometer S2, and a infrared pass filter for some really oddball observations. But it's pretty decked out. All those filters are made by Chroma. They're 50 millimeter square filters. If you're not sure what a narrowband filter is, which we'll use tonight, they're these little guys. This is a small version. It passes a very, very fine select type of wavelength, depending on what we're observing, and we'll probably mess with that tonight. And all that is riding on top of a software BISC Paramount MX Plus, and the entire thing is controlled by a Prima Luce Labs Eagle 3. So that is the rig rundown right there. So Trevor, you're pretty familiar with the Esprit 150. I know you enjoy using yours quite a bit. It's kind of your workhorse. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's about it for me. Like all I ever wanted when I started out was a big refractor. Like just give me a refractor with a lot of aperture, And that's exactly what that scope is. And it's really been a dream. And sadly, it's never been under dark skies. That scope has only ever seen my Bortle 7 sky. So it's really cool to see, what's possible with this scope from the observatory. It's really cool to see.
Well, I know I've offered the scope to you before. Hopefully tonight might tempt you a little bit, especially now that you see we have a webcam in there. You can at least watch it. So
yeah, that's true. And that little test exposure kind of got me a little excited that we
yeah.
looked about 5 minutes ago.
Well, all the data that we're shooting this evening is actually saved as RAWs, so we can actually get this and process everything later as well. So it's all cool. Saved in the background. Software tonight, because we are running a software bisque mount, it is SkyX. Trevor, you're new to the SkyX family with you got your Mighty now in the dome there. You're pretty familiar with the SkyX controls, but exactly the same thing. But we're going to be doing live stacking, where the software is basically taking pictures and auto stacking the images right in front of us, which is kind of a watered down version of obviously what we already do in astrophotography anyway, just the exposures are shorter. So
yeah, live stacking is so great for something like this, right? Because you really do get a really spectacular view in a short amount of time without all the headaches that we go through to produce a full, long exposure image. Live stacking is great for outreach and stuff like this.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of different softwares, I think, that do it. You have an ASI Air. I think the ASI Air does it as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, it does. I haven't used it yet, but I know that it does.
Yeah, so if you're looking to do some outreach, especially right now with COVID and stuff like that, I've done this too, where I've kind of semi-retired the eyepieces for the time being. This has gotten really popular even in the field, where you can show these images right off the camera, and you're able to show people things that would rival a very large aperture scope for a lot smaller footprint. So. All right, so I know there's a bunch of you hanging out here. Thanks for hanging out with us. There is a live chat up there. Both myself and Trevor is in the chat there. But if you have any questions, Trevor's able to see the screen. Feel free to type anything in there. Thanks for hanging out. We got people all the way from New Zealand here. That's pretty cool. Thanks for Buffalo, Michigan, Woodbury, everyone. So Scranton, Maine, and San Diego. Trevor's up in Canada. I'm in Arizona. So I know there's a bunch of you watching out there, but thanks for hanging out with us. I don't know, Trevor. We're ready to go. Scope is focused. We're on target number 1. I'm sure you'd like to get the ball rolling here. So
yeah,
I'm going to go ahead and
start off with a bang, right?
Yeah. So you've got the observing list, and we're going to go right through it. If you guys have any questions, let us know. Most of the targets have already been pre-picked for tonight, but there might be a couple little things we could bounce around. Normally, I try to make these episodes about an hour and a half, but we can go a little bit longer, as long as Trevor's cool hanging out there. But normally about under 2 hours is how long we're generally hanging out. So, these are also recorded. So if you like what you see, or you want to go back and learn about an object, pull one up. Go check it out.
So there's a question here about the live stacking versus, the traditional method of stacking, 100 exposures that are 3-5 minutes long. And I think the answer is, and I'm sure you'll have some input on this as well, Kevin. It's kind of the quick and dirty way to see the object, and you get some pretty serious structure for it. And a great example will be Andromeda coming up. It is, of course, a monochrome camera, so you won't see that full color image that you see in these process photos, but you will see, an amazing amount of structure, way more than you would see with your eye through the eyepiece. And much more than you would see in, say, a single unstretched linear exposure through your camera. So it's you'll see very soon that it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, that's a really good way of putting it. And a couple things on that. Number one, I prefer using monochrome cameras for live stacking. I've messed with monochrome and color. Color is nice, but monochrome kind of treats it more as you would probably approach it visually. And that way we're focusing more on the structure. I do find, especially like in very bright locations, that a live stack on a color camera, this is my preferred method after messing with stuff, but both work really well. I find the monochrome cameras are a little bit cleaner. You do get that extra signal, which Trevor can vouch for, especially when you're doing deep sky imaging. Regardless, monochrome has a little extra punch behind it. But we're not worrying so much about like color noise and all this distracting stuff. We're just looking at detail. So I find the monochrome cameras are very nice with that. And the other thing is when you're trying to look at different wavelengths, like when we're trying to isolate wavelengths with different filters, a monochrome camera is excellent at doing that. So that's why I prefer using monochrome. Then that also just happens to be what we have on the telescope. So I'm going to get this started, but feel free to keep asking questions because we're going to be doing 30-second exposures to start with. This has been 2x2. These are 16 megapixel images because we are binning the camera. The camera's 60 megapixels, but it takes a long time to download that file. So we're going to get that going, but feel free to ask away on questions if you guys have them floating around for either one of us.
From this point forward, there will be a pretty image of an astronomical object on the screen while we're yammering away here. And we've got 5 seconds to go.
It's like
Here
New
it is,
Year's,
folks.
So our first target, which you'll see right here in a second, very easy target, very popular target. We're about the end of the season for it, but it's one of the easiest galaxies to actually go out and image or observe. It's actually the furthest object you can see with the naked eye, and the earliest known records of it are all the way back to 964 BC by Persian astronomers, where they called it the Little Cloud, is Andromeda, as we can see here. Let me back this out. Let's see, why am I not centered?
I think you're just in a bit, right?
It might be. I was messing with the resolution earlier, so I just shouldn't have done that. So there we go. Yeah, I was just zoomed in too much. So there's a little delay on the internet tonight, so we'll open it up there. But yeah, welcome to Andromeda. Trevor, I don't know if you want to, you've shot this a bajillion times. It's one of your favorite things. I don't know if you want to, go for it. So
yeah. So it's one of those targets, a bucket list. You have to see it through a telescope. You have to take a picture of it. Your life will never be the same afterwards. And a big reason why is that it's so huge from our vantage point here on Earth. Like, it's a large galaxy, but it's so big in our sky compared to most other galaxies that you look at, by like 10 times for a lot of these ones. So the sheer size of it is so impressive. But then being able to see the spiral arms, like the outer arms, and then that glow of the core that's just gradually from that super, super bright, dense core, gradually going outwards, and it just seems to never end. And then you've got those satellite galaxies right next to it. It's so gorgeous. And not to mention that it's a grand spiral design galaxy, so it's just symmetrically so beautiful as well. And it's on a tilt. I think it has a lot of depth to it, and it's such a captivating sight.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty awesome to see it. And for those of you who are watching, we have the companions that Trevor was talking about. We have M32 right here, and then we have M110 up here. And I'm trying to get it to open up the full frame here. I don't know why it's revolting against me, but, yeah, because we can move it around. I don't know why it's not letting me get the whole thing. Maybe if I mess with something in here, it'll listen to me.
So 2.5 million light years away. That's something to think about.
Let me get back out of here real quick because something's not listening to me the way I want it to. So
that is a clean sub, Todd. I agree. And it's only going to get better. So we've got 3 stacked subs now. Wow. Look at that. Look at that detail. I mean, this is a great example of the benefits of dark skies too. So to get that kind of signal, it would be hours and hours of exposure from home, and it would just be a nightmare to actually separate the details of this galaxy from a really washed out, light polluted sky. So to see the contrast in it like that right out of the box is so incredible. It's almost not fair.
Yeah, well, that's kind of a testament to the dark skies out there. We are shooting at nearly first quarter moon right now as well. But I mean, having good conditions is really nice. But on top of it, and Trevor, you probably have the most experience with this. Camera technology has exploded in like the last 5 years. So I mean, I know you've started off with like the Canon Rebels, but now to go to something like what you've got, like the 2600, which ZW 2600, which uses the Sony IMX571 sensor, which is basically the crop version of what we're using right here, the full frame. It's ridiculous what you can do in like no time with these things.
Yeah, it really is a huge sensor, and that wasn't like sensors of this size and resolution. Like you said, it's the last 5 years they've really come around, but yeah, it's unbelievable to see how far and how fast the camera technology has come in the last decade. And so what is the temperature of this sensor right now? Can we see that information? Is it
it's on the outside. It's not visible right now, but we're running at -10 right now.
-10? Okay, so that's a big difference too between those DSLR cameras that really weren't meant to be, have that shutter exposed for hours on end, where these cameras were built for that.
Definitely. What is kind of cool about some of these areas is there's a lot of star forming regions up in Andromeda, which you can see kind of over here. And that's kind of pretty neat to be able to see some of that. We have several of those in our own galaxy, but if you're trying to image it, you can actually make those pop out when you're isolating like the hydrogen wavelengths, and that's definitely something that you can do in astrophotography. But if we're studying it, these star regions, or H2 regions as they're called, do pop out with glowing hydrogen is basically what they are. But you've seen a lot of that in your images as well, I think, Trevor, as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another galaxy that's large like this, one of the few other super large ones is the Triangulum M33, and it has a lot of those nebulous regions where some of them are cataloged as their own deep sky object. They're so big and studied.
Yes. Now, have you seen this visually? You've been to a couple star parties, but have you seen this from a dark sky site?
I have, yeah. So Cherry Springs State Park, I looked at Andromeda through, I think it was an 18-inch Dob, and it was incredible. Of course, it's still not like this. You see that bright core for sure, but to see any sort of, I could see that first dust lane near the core, that dark one. Seeing that visually was kind of amazing to me.
It's really an impressive object in binoculars.
Yes, yeah, it's so long.
Yeah, it kind of puts it into perspective of just how big it takes up the sky. I mean, it's big. So
what struck me, naked eye under dark skies, Andromeda, without binoculars or anything, to see Andromeda and the Triangulum in the same field of view, naked eye, is a real treat. And you really need dark skies for that. And you almost need to use your averted vision, but you can see both of them as little patches in the sky.
Now, what's crazy about this galaxy is the first telescopic observation wasn't done until 1612. But Charles Messier wasn't able to catalog it until 1764, and then William Herschel observed it in 1785. But the first image of it wasn't actually acquired until 1887, and that's where it showed the spiral structure. And even after that, everyone thought it was a nebula, and there's this big debate in the 1920s between astronomers about whether it was a nebula or whether it was a galaxy. And it wasn't until like 1925 that Edwin Hubble was able to actually prove that it was actually a galaxy. And he did so by observing these different variable stars. And if you don't know what a variable star, it's a star that varies in brightness. These are called Cepheid Variables. And these are stars that basically pulsate really rapidly. And the brightness of these stars actually varies by the pulsation period. So if you're able to, knowing the luminosity of the star allows us to know the distance. And once we're able to measure this, and we're able to figure all the brightness out, we can use those as like mile markers. And because he was able to observe Cepheid variables in the galaxy, he was able to actually distinguish that it was actually a lot further away than originally thought, and it wasn't a galaxy, or it wasn't a nebula at that point. It was actually a galaxy. So that wasn't officially done until 1925. So,
wow.
and my camera's revolting against me, so here we go. Ta-da! So, thanks, Brian, for texting me and let me know that happened. So.
Oh yeah, I see it. He disappeared.
Another thing, Andromeda actually contains about 460 globular clusters. It's about 1 trillion stars in the galaxy, which is quite a collection. And then we're on a collision course, of course, with this in about 4 billion years or so. It's kind of like that movie Don't Look Up. I don't know if you saw that yet, Trevor, but it's like instead of a comet, we're going to run into a galaxy. So
Yeah, someone said that. They're like, look out, it's coming to get us. Yeah, we have some time to prepare, but it is coming.
Don't worry about it. So, well, I don't know about you, Trevor. I think we pretty much nailed Andromeda, and I don't know if you're ready to move on to the next target on the list there.
Sure.
So let me go ahead and exit out of this, and we'll get our next target in here.
And if you're following our list, this is one I have not seen or photographed ever in my life before.
I actually don't release the observing lists ahead of time just to kind of keep it a surprise for everybody. But I try. For those of you who never joined me before, this is the first time I've actually had a guest on. Trevor's the first one I've ever had, and I think it's going to be a monthly thing. I'll have someone else on each month, or I'll try to. But it kind of makes it more like a star party at that point, where you're hanging out with some friends of yours under dark skies, basically chatting about what you're observing or blah, 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 blah through it. I think it's a little bit more fun to have someone else on to just bounce different ideas off of.
Totally.
Let's see. Camera.
I see some guys, some astrophotography vets in the chat that did the old methods, the film astrophotography. So much respect for that era of the hobby. And I always think now for the people that get into the hobby of astrophotography and stick with it through all the trials and tribulations and actually love it despite all the headaches, man, you had to be even 10 times more committed in those days to stick with it, with the manual guiding and I always hear the dry ice cameras and all all the stuff you had to come up with to engineer, which was basically something completely new, and you didn't have all the resources that of course we have now.
Definitely. The film stuff, I really like the way film looks. You get that grain in the image and stuff like that, which is something like all of us fight so hard to get rid of. But there's something about a film shot when you see it, but then you realize someone sat there and froze their butt off for that amount of time. It wasn't just I'll take 75 images. No, the shutter is open that long. So
with the high ISO film. And so those film photos are so authentic looking. That's the best way to describe it. They're not technically perfect, but they're so authentic. And I've probably seen more film photos of Comet Hale-Bopp than any other space photo. That one got everyone out buying cameras and taking pictures. Comets are kind of like that.
No, that's definitely a cool one. I don't know why it's not letting me go to full frame, but it doesn't matter because the one that we're actually observing right now is super tiny in the image.
Oh yes, I see it.
So Trevor has a picture of this on the observing list just as a reference, because this is one of the oddball targets that I like to throw in. I try to make sure everybody gets a little glimpse, but having a system like this allows us to basically have what would probably be equivalent to a 30-something inch daub under dark skies. So why not go for something stupidly obscure like this? This is ARP 273, the Rose. And what's cool, and Trevor, you can see this in your note image, it looks like the picture. So you can actually see, so ARP, the ARP catalog is basically a collection of really interesting galaxies. And this one is about this is wrong. There's something in here that's wrong in my notes, and I probably copied something and I shouldn't have. Is the distance. It's a lot further than I have written down here. Bear with me just a second. Good thing we have phones and stuff like that. So it's really difficult to keep all this on hand at all times. Yeah, it's not 3 million light years away. It's 360 million light years away from us is how far this interacting galaxy set is. I'm going to go ahead and stretch this a little bit to bring it out.
And it's in Andromeda too, right? We're not too far from our last target.
Yep, it's in the constellation Andromeda. It's composed of 2 galaxies. There's the top one, which is UGC. Anytime you see UGC, you know it's going to be like way out there. I don't even know what UGC stands for. It's Galactic Catalog, Galaxy Catalog, but I don't know what the U stands for.
Ultimate Galactic Catalog.
The Ultimate Galactic Catalog. That's what they use the Death Star to. The top spiral galaxy that forms kind of the rose flower head is UGC 1810, or the smaller one is UGC 1813. The circular arms in UGC 1810 shows us that there has been interaction between the 2 galaxies, where the smaller one, kind of the stem portion of this right down in here, they actually believe that that's already passed through the larger spiral galaxy because of how disturbed the spiral arms are. But there's still a lot of star formation going on around the core of UGC 1813, the stem portion. There's a really pretty picture from Hubble, of course, that really shows this in detail. But this is 273, the Rose, really tiny little target in the field there. There's actually a satellite, I don't know if you can see it, Trevor, that's passing through the field up on the top left there. You can see it. Something's going through there.
Yeah. Our little friend. But can you zoom in maybe one notch closer?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You can actually see some fainter things in the back there. So.
And this is where you really start to see the stacking improving the image, where you just keeps getting cleaner and cleaner and a little more detail each time. It's like magic.
Yeah, and it's saying this is about magnitude 15.2, so it's faint. This is a challenging visual target. About 470,000 light years in diameter. I guess I think that's UGC 13, so that's for the stem portion down there. About
so cool. And I mean, this isn't an object that your average backyard astrophotographer would really go after, just for the main reason it is so small. So those wide field refractors and a lot of the stuff I shoot with this would just be, it would almost look like a star. Really cool to see
your Edge 11 on it. So
the Edge 11, yeah, that would pull it in. But yeah, something tells me that it would be tough on my seeing conditions and focus, and it just looks very challenging to get a detailed shot of this one.
Yeah, let's see where this guy actually is. Okay. It's not far from Triangulum, actually. So
cool.
Actually, it's not far from NGC 891. Like, it's very close sky-wise to that. So we're right next door to NGC 891 to give you an idea of where that's hanging out. But yes, it is tiny. I'm trying to figure out what that little galaxy is, and I have all the additions to Sky Safari, and it's still not coming up. So it's
faint.
It's faint. So it's way out there. So, but let me see if I can get the scope to go full frame.
Realize
that's
how
almost
small.
full frame. But that's 1,000 millimeters right there, which is that's a healthy focal length for most stuff, and it's still tiny. And we're at 5 minutes. So if you did a 5-minute sub, this is what you would get out of that. So
I mean, at this focal length, if you weren't ready for it and you just happened to take this picture, you'd almost be like, hey, what's that what is that there? And then you zoom in, oh my God, it's a galaxy. Like it is, it's a nice little surprise in there waiting for you.
Yeah, like a little question mark almost
Yeah,
when you're like real big. So
explore me.
yes. Well, that's ARP 273. It's one of our oddball targets for the evening. Thought I would throw that in there. It's a heck of a ways out there, 360 million light years away from the Earth. It's still up and visible. Good luck if you've got new moons and access to probably a big daub, like 20-inch big or bigger. Tell the person who owns it to throw it over there. But yeah, that's ARP 273. It's doable in amateur equipment, obviously. I'd say we're not running anything special here. It's a nice setup, but I mean, you could do it. So I challenge you, Trevor, to shoot it from your backyard. So.
I want to now. I love it.
So yeah, I think we're pretty much wrapped on that one. Now, Trevor, did you get a chance to get out and do Comet Leonard?
No, it was, I had very few chances due to weather. And you know what? I probably could have ventured out to get it. And I'm really kicking myself that I didn't, especially since its tail continued to grow and it broke apart and it got so interesting. I lived vicariously through the other astrophotographers getting insane images of it. Really enjoyed seeing those, but I didn't personally shoot it.
No, it was pretty cool. I saw it from my backyard when it was getting low, but I didn't try to shoot it. And then of course all my buddies and I'm sure Dylan, of course. I don't think Dylan got a good shot of it either because it wasn't from his backyard. Dylan O'Donnell from Star Stuff down in Australia. But everyone in the Southern Hemisphere got a much better go of it than we were able to in the Northern Hemisphere. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got it passing the globular cluster though, didn't you?
Yeah, I got it with M3 with the telescopes that you saw in the observatory. I shot luminance with this scope and color on the one shot setup at the same time, exactly the same time. So I was able to do like 30 minutes of or like 40 minutes of exposure on the Comet in half the time because it was shooting both telescopes. But it was an experiment that obviously worked. If you guys haven't seen that, because I know a lot of you are probably here because Trevor's here. If you go to Focus Astronomy, you can see that picture up on our Instagram page. But pretty proud of it.
I feel like are you segueing to our next target?
Yes, because there's another comet up right now, and it's actually easy to see, and it's really high right now, and that's Comet 19P Borley. I shot this the other night. It's moving really quickly through the star field, so it'll actually probably blur while we're on it. But Borley was discovered in December 28th, 1904, and it's a pretty short period comet, so that's 6.8 year orbital period. But it was the spacecraft, or Deep Space One, that launched a while ago. But in September 2001, it actually did a flyby by this, and that's where it gets all famous with it. So it's up in the sky right now, so you can see it. It's not hard to get it.
100 people watching now. Let's see this snowball.
Yep, snowball. It's like 9.4 magnitude, about 111 million miles from Earth right now. It's only 5 miles in diameter for the nucleus, but obviously it's puffing stuff out, so it looks a little bit better. Right. There it is.
Hey, cool.
Some little galaxies in the back too. So.
And so what is live stacking a comet like? I would imagine it's pretty impressive. It continues to grow as you pick up more of that fainter tail, right?
Because we were doing, it has a really faint tail, but it's going to move through the star field. So live stacking is focusing on stacking against the stars. So over the next few minutes, it will streak more and more probably as it comes out. So, but I think it's one of the first comets I've done on live stack. So,
well, that's a cool effect then to see the motion of it through the live stacking.
Definitely. So, but it's easy. It's up in Cetus right now. So I've seen a lot of people start to image it, especially a lot of people online are starting to talk about it. So definitely something to go check out. It would be helpful if I could type in the right thing real quick, just so I can kind of figure out where it's at. For those of you who want to know how to find it, it's actually not far from the moon right now. Cetus is just below the moon this evening, but yeah, it's just hanging out there. And there's a couple galaxies near it.
Oh, it's brightened up a lot already just in those two subs.
Yeah, so definitely it'd be a fun one to see what you can get. I bet you could get it from your house. So, and it's rising. Wait, no, it's setting. I'm sorry. So,
Comet 19P Borley.
Yes.
5 miles. Magnitude 9.4 in Cetus. Discovered in 1904.
So you too can go discover a comet. This might take a while, but then you can put your name on
it. I see a faint glow to the bottom right of it that could either be a galaxy or... Yeah, do you see that?
Yeah, I think that's a galaxy. There is a galaxy near it. I'm trying to look that up on Sky Safari right now. We could also plate solve the image and find out pretty quick too. But I think it's PGC 954247, which is a 15.8 magnitude. Yeah. 814 million light years from the Earth.
That is so cool. I mean, this is what it's all about for when you're exploring like this, to be surprised by the other objects in the field of view. What a treat to have a system like this at your disposal that's just all ready to go, and you're literally just exploring and choosing what you want to look at in real time. It's incredible.
No, it's pretty neat. And I used to do this from my backyard with my own equipment, but now that we have the observatory and it's all set up, it's really cool to just kind of chase after some of this. I'm going to try to stretch it because it does have a thin little tail hanging out.
I see that. Yeah, to the bottom. It's kind of bottom left.
Yeah, it's very... You need longer exposures, obviously, to grab it, but it's hanging out in there somewhere, so... But yeah, that is 19P Borley up in Cetus right now. As Trevor said, 19.4 magnitude, so...
Is it 19P or 17P? Mike is saying 17P, but he may have... that might have been a spelling mistake.
It is 19P. Right on, making sure everything looks good. Yep, we're all set. So
that is really cool.
Let me double check something real quick. I know we talked about this because I've done it before. I wanted to get people's opinion on it because I didn't want to put it in the observing list because it could take a little bit of time to do. But there's a new telescope floating around in space right now. I think we all know what that is. I heard
about that on the news somewhere. Yeah.
I wish I had a telescope that big, but yeah, James Webb. Everyone obviously, I think the primary is finally deployed on it too, so it's like a real telescope at this point. But we can go find it if you guys want. It's a bit of a challenge because it's tiny and it takes time for it to blur in the field. But if you guys are up for it,
yeah, I'd say maybe we could throw it to the chat. Would you guys be interested in finding the James Webb Space Telescope where it currently is? Because I certainly would be.
Yeah, you can actually see real quick while everyone's... Let us know if you want to go after the James Webb Telescope. We'll go check it out. But if you look, in the time that we've done this, you can see the comet head is already streaked. So it's moving really quickly. I don't know if I have
There's another galaxy.
Yeah. I want to see if I find this real quick while everyone decides on what we should do with our lives real quick. This is a 40-minute animation I did on the scope the other night. Tons of satellites, but you can see how fast it's moving in 40 minutes. But this is the exact same telescope, but looks like Star Wars where it's like, you know, everything flying through there. But You can
Yeah,
see the tail better in here, but
that's awesome.
go get your red cat on that thing and see what you can get. So
Yeah, I could leave the red cat on it for several hours, and it still would be in the field.
comets are tricky though. I have a hard time processing comets because they're moving. So.
Yeah, as soon as something's moving at a different speed from the stars, everything gets a little trickier. The first comet I photographed was 46P Wirtanen. Do you remember that one? In I think it was 2018.
Maybe.
They
all sound the same after a while, so it's hard for me to remember them all. It's like, oh yeah, that one. So
it's sentimental for me, so I remember it. But that was my first comet experience, and I remember I had my subframes ready to stack, and I'm like, wait a minute, I've never done this before. Googling how to stack comet pictures, and there's tons of material out now for how to do it, but it's a different animal.
Have you done a video on comets?
So I did that one brief experience on Comet 46P, and then I did, my God, what was it called? Last summer. What was the big comet last summer?
Neowise?
Yeah, Neowise, and it was just like very simple, short exposures at dusk kind of thing. Actually, not last year, the year before. Now.
It all blurs into one. It's like, what day is it? Especially because you and me, we work from home. I mean, you have your little office that you do go to, but when you work from home, I'm sure for you, especially when you're like probably editing a video, the days just blur into like some mass. So
yeah, oh yeah, I can tell you the moon phase before I can tell you what day it is.
It's not dark. That's all you have to know. So, okay. So coordinates we just put in there are the coordinates of the current position for James Webb Space Telescope. It's not moving very quickly, but we're gonna have the telescope go over to it and see if we can get it. It's in Monoceros right now. So if you're in the northern hemisphere, I think even in the southern hemisphere, you can actually get it. And it sounds like it's really, really challenging, but it's not that hard to do it. You just have to, it's all in Sky Safari. So just, look up your position in there. Just type in JWST. The trick is being patient enough to see it streak, which when you're just imaging, it's not a big deal. But for live stack, it's going to be interesting. So
Right.
But that's why a co-host is really nice. So it's not just me being like, do, 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 do.
I had my telescope pointed in Monoceros recently to shoot the Rosette Nebula, and I didn't realize that.
Not far from it. It's just below it. So
okay.
Right now, at least. So I'm going to do 60-second exposures because that'll encourage it to streak a little bit more. So, which is what we're looking for. Usually that's like the complete opposite of what you want. But so we're going to do 60-second bin 2x2 shots and see what comes out. Let me see here real quick. There's a really cool website that NASA put together about this, about Where's James Webb. So here it is. If you've never seen it, it's literally called Where's James Webb. So the primary mirror, everything's deployed. So over the next 10 days, they're actually going to be collimating all the 18 individual primary mirror elements to get it to be the one large mirror. At the end, it's going to be a 6.5 meter F20 system, but the target, basically, right now, we're looking at 675,381 miles from Earth. So just under 750,000 miles is what we're looking to shoot right now. And it's the size of a tennis court. So let's see what we can get.
Amazing.
Also, while we're talking about satellites, we're actually broadcasting from the observatory with Starlink. So this is the first time we've ever imaged the stars by the stars. You better pay me for that, SpaceX. So it's like, that's a good tagline. So
they need your support.
I'm sure they do. As 67 go right through the shot and completely ruin our image. So So here's the tricky part.
That first sub is going to be tough, isn't it?
Is where's the sat? Let's play. Where's the satellites?
Oh.
I don't know why. The last couple times I've done this, it always ends up being at the bottom of the frame somewhere. It just happens to be where it is.
So this will be easier after the next exposure comes through.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
We're looking for a little streak.
It could be any of those stars, right?
Yeah. It's little. And I did this a couple days ago on this telescope, so I know it's doable, but I let the scope sit there for like an hour,
right?
Taking 5-minute exposures, which is a lot easier to do, and then I blink compared them all in PixInsight, the processing software, so that's really easy to do. But
right.
Live is a completely
we'll find it.
set.
We're looking for a tiny streak, and you've isolated it to you're saying it should be somewhere.
That's where it's been in the past, but that doesn't mean that's true at this point. So we could be here for a while. This is the challenging part. It's in the frame because well, now we got a bunch of stuff. I think that's an asteroid right there, or a shooting star. We are in the middle of the quadranids as well. Because this one blurs out in streaks, so that's like a shooting star right here. But there's another line right here, but that's moving too quick, especially for like 1-minute exposures.
Yeah, we're looking for a much shorter line, right?
Yeah, just a little streak. This is going to be really difficult to do live, so as long as you guys are cool with sitting here in a star field talking to me and Trevor for the next like 10 minutes while we look at dots.
Well, as long as our conversation is twice as interesting, it should be fine.
You got to watch it. You're on the East Coast. Did you watch it live on Christmas?
Oh yeah. I mean, what a time slot! Christmas morning, 7:15 a.m. And I know so many people had the same thing going on as me. It was like I was with my family. We're ready to open gifts and stuff, but we got the laptop. We're all crowded around watching the launch. Unforgettable.
I was asleep. I'm like
yeah,
2 or 3 hours after Trevor, and I just woke up. It's like, plus I have little kids, so like I'm thinking about, oh, I got it. And I was up late getting like the rest of their Christmas experience ready to go. So
yeah, that's not a perfect time for parents, especially in your time zone.
Yeah. I woke up the next morning. It's like, it's Christmas. Oh, did it make it? Did it blow up? Please make it work. So,
you know what? I feel like someone in the chat is going to find it before we do, and we're just going to scan past it.
Probably. It's real slow. What's up here? There's something hanging out up here. There's a line right here, too. That's moving way too quick. So,
I'm guessing if you zoom out even one notch, it would be too small.
Possibly. It's kind of funny because when it's actually a lot more obvious when you finally get it. It's like, oh, there it is. But yeah, it's at first it's just like, oh my God, where the heck is it?
Once you find it, it gets a lot easier.
Yeah, I've never done it off of a sub. I've always had to stack them though. So, now that we're 3 minutes in, it should be getting to the point where it becomes noticeable. And for any of you who are hanging out here and don't know what the heck we're doing because you just got on, we're looking for the James Webb telescope. It's in the star field here. The telescope's on the star field. The trick is, where the heck is it? Because we're basically looking for something the size of a tennis court at 675,000 miles away. I'm sorry, 675,000 miles away. So So it's a little bit of a
In-
trick. And it's not this. This is
No.
something else that flew through there. It's a lot smaller, and I've generally found it's in the bottom of the frame from the last couple nights I've observed it.
And so it's bright enough at this contrast, we don't need to stretch to see it.
It should be, it's about as bright as some of the stars. It's like 15th magnitude floating around there, but we're basically looking for a streak, and it's a pretty even streak. I might be on the other side of the frame, actually. I don't know which side is up right now, so. But I'll take all this stuff and process it, and maybe we can make a blink comparison and post it.
Yeah, there you go. So even if we fail in finding it now, you can at least do a follow-up and say, it was in there.
Yeah, we did it. We just didn't want to waste, an hour and a half looking for the dot, because we have like all these other targets on the list. And it's okay if we don't get to them all.
Well, so we'll put a time limit on it. We'll do what, six minutes? One more minute than this, or?
Yeah, we can do that, because at 5 minutes, the streak is noticeable. Yeah, Mike, we're trying to find a telescope with a telescope. So.
Yes, this is Where's Waldo, like expert edition.
Yeah, pro level. Where's Webb pro edition? So
it's the James Waldo telescope.
It doesn't help. Usually the internet we've got here is really solid. Tonight, I guess there's been a lot of outages in California right now. So it's not as responsive. Normally I can get across the frame really quick, but it's just not being super responsive tonight.
Yeah, someone suggested this image specifically would be cool if people could download it and maybe find it on their own. That would be cool.
Yeah, I'll pull them all. I'll run them through PixInsight, get them to where I can blink it, and then it's really easy at that point because it's right there. So, but the problem is there's also other stuff in the field here. It's like there's something right there. There's another one right there. And those are going much too fast. James Webb is a lot further out to see, and it's a lot slower. Even although when it gets to L2, its orbital position, it's only going to be like 16th mag, which is very faint for visual. That's like a 30-something inch scope to even attempt to get to that magnitude. Well, realistically, to be able to really get it to where it's not like you're stretching to get it. But for a camera, I think even from your backyard, Trevor, that's not a big deal. The central star of the Ring Nebula is 15.5. So just as a reference point.
I'll stick to trying to capture the ISS, I think.
Well, there you go. Yeah. I'm going to do one more pass. And then I'm not going to give up on it, but we're going to, like I said, if we can't get it tonight, we're going to definitely go to the next target, but we're going to take the data that here, because everything we're shooting right now is being saved to the hard drive. I'll take it, process it, make a blink comparison. I could even do it. I don't think I could do it while we're doing it because I have to eat up bandwidth to transfer files, but later I'll do it maybe this evening, and then maybe tomorrow morning, Trevor, I can send that out to you and you can share that. So
yeah, there would be a very small, very interested group of people that would like to see that.
Tree Pruner, first off, thanks for watching. But yes, this is an Esprit 150 that we're using for tonight. Running at native F7. And it's got a big full-frame sensor on the back. ZWO 6200. Monochrome. We're shooting at about 1.5 arc seconds per pixel. Seeing isn't super ideal tonight, but we've had a lot of moisture out there. On a good night, we could do like 0.7 arc seconds per pixel on this, which is crazy. But I'm kind of motivated to find it now, just because it'd be really cool to be like, there it is. I'm already halfway through the frame, so it's like just keep going.
Well, we put in our 7 minutes. It's in
If
there.
you're trying to do it, by the time you hit a 5 minute exposure, it streaks. It becomes more noticeable at 5 minutes, at least at this focal length. If you're using shorter focal length, that's good luck. So, but
Well, I get to see what's coming next, and I'm pretty excited about this next one. And I'm interested to know if so we've just been shooting luminance up to this point, right?
yeah, no, that the next one is definitely something that we can actually start to play with the filters and actually show kind of the reason why I like using the monochrome cameras the most.
Yeah, I'm interested to see the next one. Using the filters and actually the size of it in this scope too. I think it'll be a pretty exciting target.
Definitely. No, we'll definitely get
Really
to that.
want to find it, don't you?
Uh,
I would love to end it with like, there it is.
yeah, I know there's a bunch of streaks in there we just passed. There's a bunch of satellites, in satellites and some other stuff in the frame right now, which doesn't help. It's it's pretty much the same brightness where the other ones aren't the same brightness. It's not super thin. Usually the last couple nights I've shot this, it's usually down here in the bottom right of the frame. I don't know why. It's just kind of how the RA and deck tend to land it. But it's usually because it's not that. This is way too long for the James Webb. It's much shorter. It would take hours for it to cross the frame like that. So I was really hoping we could do this live. It would be super cool to do it live, but it was also, that's why I didn't put it on the list, because it's like I didn't want to chew through people. People are staying up late watching this stuff. It's late where Trevor is, but you make a living off of staying up late, so good for you.
It's my job to be tired in the morning. This is cool. Saturday nights are great for this. I can't think of a better way to spend. This is way better than anything else I'd be doing on a Saturday night.
Okay, so I'm almost certain it's in the field here, but it's kind of like it's like looking for an asteroid. Essentially, this is exactly the same process. This is actually how they found Pluto too. You're basically looking for what's moving in the frame, and it's a little difficult to do it live. That's why you want to make sure you've got time to do it. So
I have a whole new appreciation for astronomers in the past that have discovered asteroids and small planets.
There's a streak right there, but I think that's a little too long. I'm gonna do one pass real quick just to get to the corner. This is where I'm at right here. And if I don't see it, then we're off to the next target. And I'll blink compare all of these and make an animation tonight. Fire that over to Trevor in the morning, and then we'll share it on our social media channels.
Yeah, I'll get a message. You're gonna say, "I was off. It was never in there."
Yeah, exactly.
I checked. It wasn't in there.
Just so you guys know, I'm not crazy. Let me just show you the other night real quick. Boop boop. There it is. That's the other night. So that's James Webb taken on this scope. It should be easy to get. Those are 5-minute pictures, so you can see how much it should blur in 5 minutes. But it's getting further away. It's like 150,000 miles further away than it was at this shot. But anyway,
we're at 10 minutes almost. So maybe can you pull it out to a wider field of view? I feel like in 10 minutes we would see something. And can you pull it a wider field and do a bit of a stretch?
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay. Is this the full field of view here?
No, I don't know why it's not letting me get the full field tonight.
Okay.
It's
Okay, but
like
we're
not
farther out than we were.
obeying me.
You would think we would see it in this from this view.
Yeah, because there's something right there. That's not it. That's too much um, movement for it, as you can see. And that was a way cropped in shot as well. That animation that you saw, that was
Right.
way in there. So,
Right.
it shouldn't be moving too. That's blinking. It's just slow and consistent is what you're looking for, and I'm not catching anything yet. So,
Well, we'll find it later. It's
yep,
I have faith that it's in there.
probably a bunch of stuff in there actually.
Well, I feel like I can see some some dust in there obscuring stars, and it's getting
Yeah, we're in Monoceros. There's a bunch of stuff in there. Let's see. Middle left, there's a streak there. This little thing. Nah, this one's not it either because there's a even streak right down there.
right.
This right here, these are bright and then dim. That's something tumbling in the field right there. So it could be a rocket booster, it could be a bunch of stuff, but those where it gets bright, dim, that means that it's tumbling. So first one that finds it wins a something from you win the whole remote observatory.
I was just gonna say you win the S3 150, but if it's the whole observatory, that's quite a prize.
Yeah, Brian, who actually owns Skies Away, is probably watching on his phone, screaming at the screen. No,
Right
no,
now.
no, 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 no.
Please don't say that. Please don't even joke.
All right. Well, we spent like 12 minutes on this thing, so I'm gonna blink comparison it. I will find all that. We'll send it over to Trevor and see what we can get later. So
He'll send it over to me, and I'll look at it for another hour or so and see if I can find it.
yeah, we'll get to it. So the next target, I don't know if you want to just introduce it while I get it ready to go, Trevor, but you know where we're going. So
next up, we have this one's cool. I think this one's on a lot of people's list because the Messier catalog is the most popular deep sky object catalog, and this is Messier 1, number 1 on the list. If you're going through them all, you got to see number 1. And I won't say what its actual name is until we're a little closer. Anyone in the chat know what Messier 1 is? It's one that I've photographed before, and I remember going after it in the early days with my DSLR and a small short focal length refractor. And I was like, oh, okay, this one's pretty small and pretty difficult to do justice with a smaller rig, but it is in there. Yeah, Mike's got it already. The Crab Nebula. And I believe Kevin's going to try out, we're going to look through some different filters for this one, because my best image of the Crab Nebula was an HOO palette image, so hydrogen and oxygen only, and that had you could really see the separation of the gases in it.
Yeah, so we're gonna start with luminance just because that's what we have. We'll get it in the field.
Yep.
And then we can switch to the narrowbands. The narrowband filters right now are 5 nanometer H alpha and 3 nanometer on the O3. So the O3 takes a little bit more time to plow through.
So this, you have it in the notes here, and this blew me away when I read this about the Crab Nebula. Originally observed by Chinese astronomers in 1054, it was visible for nearly a month in the daytime sky. and it was just all of a sudden it was there. They called it the guest star. That's how new this object is. And can you even imagine seeing a new nebula in the daytime sky? I would love for that to happen in my lifetime. Let's do Messier 111.
The mystery object. So here's M1. I've got it zoomed out about as far as it'll go. I don't know why it's going to drive me nuts. I don't know why it's not letting me go to the full frame, but
it's all good.
Not a lot of the objects we're observing tonight, it's going to matter anyway. So
we got Andromeda out of the way. We're clear sailing
now. So yeah, that's M1 in luminance, which is basically all the colors the human eye can pick up right there. So, you know, it's a fuzzball. But I think it's really kind of neat with the narrowband. A lot more structure comes out, but it takes a lot more time. So I just wanted to do that so we can be like, that's what it looks like. So it makes it a lot easier that when we do switch to the narrowband, which I'm going to do here, we're going to move the hydrogen filter. You can see our filter wheel has, it's got 2 overlapping wheels inside, so it's got all these crazy slot combos in there that we have to pay attention to. And we're going to up the exposure because the narrowband cuts out a lot more light at this point. But with this system, we can actually go up to 5-minute images without a guider on it. So 60 seconds isn't a problem. But that's what we're going to do. 60 seconds.
I have never looked at the crab visually. Is it pretty dim, or is it not bad under dark sky?
It's okay. I have seen that structure, like that cage structure it's got, but it was in a 28-inch telescope. So,
cool.
In dark skies.
Supernova remnants are, a lot of them are really great visually. The Veil Nebula and all that. Those are beautiful sights visually.
Yeah, it's a cool one. It's definitely not on the top of the list of objects to go observe as a beginner or something like that, though, because it's a lot smaller. Obviously, from the frame here, it's a lot smaller, but you can actually see the full frame up here, and the green is what we're inside. It's pretty tiny. That's 1,000 millimeter focal length. So it just finished a 60-second exposure. And now everything's going to completely change as it switches to hydrogen. So you'll be able to see the instant. This is why I like monochrome, because you can watch the shift here real quick as it downloads the image. So we'll go from luminance right into the H-alpha frame. And a lot of the stars will disappear and get smaller. And the detail on the crab will pop a little bit more. But it takes a little bit of time for it to. There it goes. So,
oh, wow. Look at that. It's... quite the difference, eh? You can see that cage you were talking about. It's almost like marbled. Just gorgeous. And that's a single exposure. This one's going to get
60.
really cool after a few subs come through. Look at that.
A couple friends of mine have time lapses of this where they shot it like several years ago. And then they've compared it, and you can actually see the expansion of those fingers or cage-looking material expand. It's pretty neat, actually. And it's actually expanding about 900 miles per second, or 1,500 kilometers per second, if we're gonna,
the benefits of being an astrophotographer for a decade or longer. You get to see, things slowly change.
Yeah.
And Adam Block put out a video pretty recently about watching, was it the crab that he observed change over 20 years from Mount Lemmon?
I think so.
Yeah.
Doesn't suck to have a 32-inch telescope either. So.
No, I mean, that's, one day.
It's downloading the second 1-minute shot, so it should get a little bit more contrasty, a little bit cleaner here as the stack applies. There we go. So, but I mean, honestly, when I started imaging with a C8 Hyperstar when I was like 18, I did that, and then I got out of imaging and went back to, it was too expensive. But now that I can do this professionally, it's like, if this was my picture, and this is only 2 minutes at f7, I mean, that's ridiculous. But I mean, the technology that we have today, it's like 2 minutes of like doing absolutely nothing, and having that rivals, so much of what we could do nowadays. I have done O3 on this, but I've never done the O3 live stack. We can switch the O3 filter in if you want. It's going to be kind of interesting to see the difference, though. It'd be a total experiment, though.
Yeah, I know that we would need, to really do that O3 justice, to get 10 minutes on it of live stacking would be nice. But even if you were able to flip back and forth from what we collect now in the HA to, say, a couple of O3 subs, it would be kind of neat to see the contrast there between
We'll be able to see the transition, but I can't flip back and forth on the shots. So, but I can definitely stop it. I mean, that's pretty good. That's 3 minutes right there. I mean, that's all the detail on the crab you'd ever see. You'll never be able to see a bunch of this, but I've seen this large bright section right here.
Really?
I have seen that in a 28-inch, very faint in a 28-inch telescope. We were on Kit Peak. We had a private night in Kit Peak where we were able to bring our telescopes up there.
I'm going to put that on my list. The next time I have a big scope under a dark sky, I want to look at the crab. And that sounds pretty cool.
So it's flipping the O3. Oh, it already did the flip. So we're doing 60 seconds O3. This is a 3 nanometer O3. So really narrow band of light that it's going to let through. But we'll see. This is an experiment at this point. I have done it. There's cool things in it. This is actually the reason I have the infrared filter in this wheel, because you can actually see the pulsar inside with the infrared filters, but we don't have the filter wheel quite tuned right to make sure that all work. We could try it. We'll try it. And if it doesn't work, then whatever. But last time I tried with something else, it didn't work. But
you mentioned that we're not going to mess with focus or anything. It's kind of just as is. But
it's not worth messing with, folks. And it's pretty close. Obviously, some of the stars aren't going to be a little bloated, but this is kind of the thing about live stacking. You kind of have to throw the perfectionist part of imaging out the door. So
totally, yes. And when you've got a system humming along like this one is right now, I wouldn't touch a thing. Just keep it going. This is perfect.
There's the crab. You're welcome.
Yeah.
So
it's like, let's try and tweak it to make it 1% better.
And on this setup here, there's O3. That's a single O3 right there.
Okay,
so
there you go.
It came out a lot better than I thought. So
I wasn't watching when it flipped. That's what I really wanted to see. Oh, I can watch it on the YouTube because there's a
instant replay.
I need an instant replay on my life.
But yeah, so there's the O3 right there. Little different detail, but enough in there to where you could do the bicolor. It gets a lot of the background portion of it in, where the H alpha gets a lot of that structure up front is what you're picking up in there. So
yeah, so when processing the HOO palette, you're literally assigning these gases to color channels. So in that one, it's hydrogen to red and O3 to blue and green. And because you're really flipping back and forth to see the differences, and it kind of layers in the two colors together. It's interesting how processing an astrophoto is like another way to really appreciate the structure and details of an object. It's like you really have an intimate knowledge of what it looks like up close because you spend so much time looking at it.
Mm-hmm. No, and it really, that's kind of why I like posting the process pictures, but I really like going and seeing. That's kind of why I like doing these virtual star parties. Because I can reach more people without being like, hey, I'm in Arizona, you should come hang out. And none of you can come because you don't live anywhere near where I'm at. Or same for you. Where this, it's like, I don't know whenever I'm going to be able to see Trevor in person again at this point, but we're still hanging out observing, and we're using a telescope that neither of us are anywhere near. I'm going to try the infrared just as an experiment. If it doesn't work, which I think it's just going to completely disappear because I think there's a filter that stacks in front of it. That's how this filter wheel works. So you have to align the wheels correctly to get the right combo. So,
I see.
but if you're just joining us, this is M1, 6,500 light years away. It's a supernova remnant in the constellation of Taurus the Bull. There's actually a much larger supernova remnant. I don't know if you've tried it yet, but you have the right gear to do it with the Red Cat. It's Simesis 147, the Spaghetti Nebula.
Oh, yes.
Which is...
That's on my list, yeah.
Big challenge target because it's super faint. But yeah, not far from that. So there's actually 2 supernova remnants in the horns of Taurus, the bull. So, but we're on M1 right now, just finishing up. This is oxygen 3, so it's double ionized oxygen in the supernova remnant there. This was actually first observed and sketched in 1842. That's where it got the name the Crab. And right now we're actually trying an infrared filter, which I don't think is going to work right now because we don't really have it tuned, but it should be interesting if anything shows up. And if it doesn't, we're going to go to the next target, which is a lot easier. An easy little cluster that is really kind of neat. And waiting for it to change. I think it's just going to disappear completely, but I could be pleasantly yeah. So need to work on that one. So
there's we've got it sounds like a storm going on out there. It's freezing rain and everything outside. I just heard something fall over. The wind's picking up out there. I got distracted for a second. So no observing locally for me tonight, that's for sure.
Do you leave your stuff out, or do you literally pull it all in
so
at
I've got
time of year?
Yeah, the one set up in the observatory in the dome, all sealed up nice and safe. And then another one that's out a lot of the time under a Telegizmo's 365 cover. And that's the EQ8 and the Esprit 150. Very heavy stuff and, well protected.
Those 365 covers are awesome.
It really is, yeah. Like, it's they're over engineered, and some of the just snow on top of it, and that's what they're built for.
Mm-hmm. So we flip to the next target on the list. This is an open cluster in the constellation of Auriga, M37. It's my favorite of the bundles of stuff tonight. So discovered in 1654, and it was rediscovered in 1764 by Charles Messier and documented as the 37th addition to his catalog. It's on the outer arm of the Milky Way. Contains about 500 stars, but it's a really pretty open cluster. I haven't imaged it personally. Have you done 37, Trevor?
No, when I'm in Auriga, I'm just like dazzled by the flaming star.
Yeah, it's right above it. So.
Yeah. Oh, so I wonder. So this in a wide field image that includes, say, the flaming star and tadpoles. Is this cluster in there?
Maybe in a really wide field shot.
Okay. I think there's an open cluster between those two objects, but this isn't that. Whoa!
Whoop. Too zoomed in.
500 stars. There they go. Actually, there's
a lot of
perfect.
a lot of orange stars in it because there's a lot of old stars in it. I think the cluster you're thinking of is M36 is not far from there. There's a bunch of open clusters in there. So M38 is also in there. 37 I like the most in person. If you observe it, there's a lot of orange stars in it. It's kind of a neat open cluster of stars.
You know what it kind of reminds me of in terms of like density is one of the double clusters.
Yeah.
Right? And which
they're
is
hanging out there.
Sight. Yeah, so I could see how this would be really beautiful through the eyepiece.
Ernie Jacobs, I know you were asking about M46. That's a really good open cluster with the planetary nebula in it. I think I'm going to do that next month. And for those of you who are joining us, Trevor's the first guest I've ever had on here. It's actually going nicely. I like it a lot. Next month, I'm having Richard Wright of Software Bisque and just an all-around awesome imager hanging out with me. He's a really good observer as well. But he'll be on next month, February 11th. I think. But anyway, Trevor's the first one I've had on here. It's going really well, which is kind of cool. But this is M37 open cluster in Auriga. It's a fun one to check out. It's actually a really easy one to do from the backyard if you're just into, maybe you just got a telescope for, the holidays. It's a good one to go after. Really easy. Open clusters are super easy to shoot even in town because you don't have to worry about all the faint little fuzzies the gradients destroy. But this is a cool one to do. So
yeah, you don't need long exposures for clusters.
Deep Sky Dan just asked if we're doing any more galaxies. Actually, the next one on the list is a galaxy. I just wanted to do M37 to throw an open cluster in there. That's it. M37. Ta-da. So
that's a nice one. I really like the, for an open cluster, it's pretty dense, which is kind of nice. So I can imagine through what millimeter eyepiece would you suggest for something like this? Like in a 20 or
somewhere in there, probably.
Yeah.
Play with my camera here. Something like that. Depends on the focal length of the scope. But yeah, if you're looking at 1,200 millimeter focal length, which is about average for like most little Dobbs and stuff like that, probably about a 20. I'm a really big fan of 17s millimeter focal lengths. They're a really nice middle of the road focal length. That's my favorite to use.
Cool.
All right. I'm trying to look through our list because I don't think we're going to get through all of them, but we'll see. Let's just go to the next one in the list because we were talking about galaxies, and we've only done one, which is Andromeda, which you can't not do Andromeda. So
there's another target coming up that's a you can't not do it kind of target.
Yeah, we had to do a couple of. It's that time of year. You just have to do it. So I've never done this one before. I found it on the charts and it was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I should do that one. Yeah. So this one, we're actually already on it. So NGC 2403. It's a galaxy. It's an intermediate spiral galaxy, which means it's not quite a barred spiral, but it's not a full on normal spiral either. This one's got a lot of H alpha data in it, so this might be a one that we could do a filter switch to show the star forming regions in it. So have you done this one?
No. Does it have a common name?
No.
No.
Just NGC 2403. It's not far. It's part of the M81 group, so it's kind of floating up there in Ursa Major. You could probably get it because you're fairly far north, so.
Yeah, those are all, readily available.
Hopefully this gives you some ideas for future target videos.
Absolutely.
So NGC 2403, this isn't, I always butcher this constellation. So Camelopardalis shows you how much I actually observed. Not far from Ursa Majoris, about 10 million light years away. Discovered by William Herschel in 1788. Vintage. There it is. Looks like a little M33.
Oh, you're right. Yes. Oh, that's awesome.
It's actually similar to M33 because it has a lot of the star forming regions, which you can see right there. There's one, there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one. Those little bright H2 regions in the arms there. Real heavy star forming regions in this one. So
very cool. I like the angle that it's on, and it's a decent size too. I might go after this one.
Yeah, I've never done this one, but this one's actually kind of. I might have to try this one. It's just at the beginning of the season right now for this one. It's rising, so
right.
So it's in Camelopardalis. I can't ever pronounce that. But that's a cool one. Whoops, there's the stack. So let's stretch that a bit. There we go.
Awesome. I can see some spiral.
A little too much. It'll stack down. So, but this one has a ton of star forming regions. Apparently this is visible in binoculars too. It's only 8.25 magnitude. So this is one I'll have to actually try. This is something that Messier could have actually caught, but he missed it. So it could have been that mystery M111 that never happened.
Yeah.
This also has those Cepheid variables. Edwin Hubble actually observed and detected that with a 200-inch Hale telescope in California. So this has also been observed to have Cepheid variables, which, if you don't know what those are, they're variable stars that a variable star is a star that varies in luminosity. We use them, astronomers use them as like benchmarkers for like distance. So it's actually has been observed to have Cepheid variables in there, which is really kind of neat for it. I don't know, Trevor, if you want to try it just because it's an experiment. If you want to switch the H alpha filter just to see what pops out in this galaxy.
Sure. Yeah, and I feel like I can tell which areas are going to glow through the H alpha filter.
I don't know if you want to, well, it's going, you want to explain to people like what, a lot of people, you shoot a galaxy and da-da, there it is. But if you want to explain like a little bit more of, like, you've done it with Andromeda and all that stuff. But so yeah, I don't know if you want to dig into what actually a star forming region in the galaxy means.
Oh yeah. So I mean, there's like, just like we have these nebulous regions, a lot of them are stellar nurseries and stuff where new stars are being born. We're going to be looking at an object where we can really see that soon. But just like we have these larger nebulae in our galaxy, you can see those regions in distant galaxies. So this one, we're about to see it in HA, the active hydrogen regions. But some galaxies have a lot of really prominent ones, and the big galaxies like the Triangulum have large nebulae regions in there where they're actually cataloged as their own objects. And I think in some of the southern targets have those, have a lot of those, like the Tarantula Nebula and stuff. I think that's within another. Is that in the LMC? Tarantula?
I think so. That's a Dylan O'Donnell question.
Yeah, I
He's
don't.
probably
I
up right now. Where is
he?
he? Text him. Why is he not on here? It's like afternoon there.
Yeah, we need some southern help here, but yeah. So anytime you can see that in another galaxy, to me is really kind of a brain bender.
There's the HA switch. So we lost a lot of the galaxy, but you can see some of the bright little sections right there. It looks more like stars at this point, but there's like half a dozen little things floating in there. The Hubble image, of course, is unbelievable to show the detail of those H2 regions. But yeah, that is NGC 2403. That's a new one for both Trevor and I. So
yeah, and in the astrophotography world, what a lot of people will do, because galaxies are generally broad spectrum, broadband targets that you shoot in RGB. But when they do have these H2 regions, they're usually glowing pink. That's when you can use an H alpha filter and really get a strong signal in those areas. And you actually apply that on top of your full color image of the galaxy. So yeah, anyone that goes to those links for a galaxy photo, they really want to showcase, all sides of it.
Hardcore
yes,
galaxy imaging. So.
I've only done it once. I did it on the pinwheel. I shot the pinwheel in HA. Anytime someone's shooting a galaxy in HA, it's like, oh, you're going for it.
Andromeda has some cool stuff in it too.
Yeah, that's super deep. I've seen some super deep images of Andromeda with a lot of hydrogen surrounding it.
So we're going to move to the next one. It's a nebula. Another oddball one that's kind of off the beaten path. I don't know if you've shot anything from the Abell catalog.
No,
I poked you a couple times during your live streams on what you should image. But yeah, I like Abell planetaries. They're fun little bubbles of gas floating around there. For the question in the chat, we're using a Skywatcher Esprit 150, ZWO 6200 camera, and chroma filters. Big chroma filters. So, we don't need H alpha. We could do it in H alpha, but illuminance is it. This one looks a lot like a reflection. Actually, I could see a lot of people actually processing this image and being like, "Ah, this sucks. There's a reflection off that star." It's not a reflection. So it's the object. It's called the hidden planetary.
My favorite filter on your list there is do not use.
Yes. There's a combo in there that will overlap like 2 narrowband filters, and it's do not use. So, because you won't see anything, so they cancel each other.
Yeah, that was
out.
pretty clear. Yeah.
All right, so it's coming up. We did a 30-second exposure. This is off of a very, very bright star called Mu Orionis. It's 4th magnitude. It's in the arm of Orion, the extended arm, like the one that would hold the sword, or not the sword, the whatever Orion is doing and whatever animation you see. But naked eye star. But it's got a little planetary next to it. I've seen it before visually. It's not hard to do in like an 8-inch telescope. You need like a UHC or O3 filter, but imaging wise, it's kind of fun because it just little tiny. It looks like almost perfect, like a reflection off of the star Mu Orionis, but it's actually a planetary nebula from the Abel.
Send the filters back. There's reflections.
Yep. I paid this much money and blah 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 blah.
Explain this. Like,
yes,
that's a planetary nebula.
Yes.
Mic drop.
Yeah, but that's it. And here I'll switch the O3. A lot of these things, a lot of these planetaries are very heavy in the oxygen 3 wavelength, so it's really easy to use an O3 to just pop this little sucker out of here. And because it's actually fairly bright, it should be easy. But it's actually behind the star, so Mu Orionis is much closer to us. The distance of the planetary is like 6,900 light years.
Okay.
In there, so it's a background object in comparison to the star, I believe, is how that is.
You would love this object. This is really interesting.
I really like dim objects next to bright stars. Like, it's just a contrasty thing. Like NGC 404. Mirax Ghost, that's a fun one as well.
Right.
But this is a fun one too. I've seen this in a 20-inch Dob I used to own, and it's really cool to just be like little ghost hanging out in there. It's gonna flip to O3, I think, here in a minute. It's downloading the image, and it should knock out a lot of the glare of Mu Orionis. It'll be a little out of focus, but it takes 10-second exposures to refocus this filter, and we're going to be here forever to do it. So we're just going to.
Isn't that always the case? It's like, oh, it's right next to that star, but it is nowhere near that star.
Yeah. So that's the H alpha does a little bit better job. It's also more in focus. Actually, I'm going to do that real quick.
I totally would have thought I was getting a reflection or something. I would use the clone stamp in Photoshop to remove that nebula.
It's like, no, don't do it. All those hours. You could probably knock out an awesome picture of this in like an hour, though. You should do that. When you get clear weather, you should shoot this object with your Esprit 150. It'd probably take you like an hour and a half to kill it. So put your dual narrowband in there. The HA03, that would finish it, no problem, because it's active in both those wavelengths.
It's like the shape of it is a similar size to the star too, so it really throws you off.
It really does look like a reflection. That's why they call it the hidden planetary, because it hides in the glare. But it's very blue. It's got a little bit of red in it. There's some really pretty pictures out there, but it's just one of those that are off the beaten path because it's in Orion.
Yes.
No one's looking for this. Everyone's like, oh, the Rosette and the Cone are next door. Oh, the Horsehead and the Dumbbell are next door. Or Orion and the Horsehead. So
I just Googled an image of this, and I have seen this one before. You're right. It is a lot. It is such a cute little nebula with a lot of character, considering, where it is right next to that star. But it almost has kind of a dumbbell vibe going on.
Yeah. I'm not sure why the stars are bloated. I don't know if it's stacked it on top of it or if there's maybe some haze or something down in there. Who knows? But anyway, that's the hidden planetary, Abel 12. Go check it out. It's worth it.
Yeah. Anyone in the chat, if you quickly Google Abel 12, you'll see what we mean. It is really cool.
So we're kind of to that point, Trevor, where I feel like the next target needs nearly no introduction. It's just, you almost shot this. You actually said it in one of your videos. You almost shot this the other night.
Wow, you really do keep up with my videos. Yeah, that I thought about it.
Of course, all of you can actually see what I'm typing in the search, so it kind of gives it away. If you're paying attention, I'm going to switch to all NGC targets because no one pays attention to the NGCs of the Messier catalog. So
see, that's totally an astrophotographer thing where it's, visual observers. It's like, okay, I want to, check it off my list. I want to see all these different things. An astrophotographer is like, yeah, I know I can do it better this time, so I want to shoot it again because the last time I wasn't happy with it. So you end up shooting a lot of the same targets over and over again, or at least I do. But I guess you could say that's one of my New Year's resolutions to do some more Abel 12s and obscure objects because, it just kind of sparks the imagination more when you start to explore.
And that's kind of why I like doing this stuff is, I come from, the Daub world. I have a 28-inch Daub that's nearly finished. And like the next 6 weeks, it'll be done. Sitting right behind the wall behind me is where it's stored. But I like going after the little tiny things. I like showing people weird, little off the beaten path stuff. And as I work for Skywatcher, I'm product specialist for them. I've helped with customer service for years. And I get to see what people are doing, which is great. But a lot of times it's the same thing. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But there's so many cool things out there that, Trevor and I can justify. We can, we shoot the horse head every year. You have to shoot the horse head every year. But there's so many other cool things out there, and I try to encourage that. That's way too close, but
like a punch in the face.
There you go.
Hey, we found James Webb. There it is.
There it is. That's stupid satellite. So it's like, yeah, there it is. 30 seconds, 2x2 bin, the running man. If my first Orion image looked anything like that, it would have been awesome. And, but it didn't. But that looks pretty good for 30 seconds. I think we're also shooting away from the moon right now, too. So it's in the darker part of the sky. And those satellites are going to move in the shot. And anybody who's ever imaged Orion before knows exactly how that works because there's always freaking satellites going through this region. So that's just part of it. So, but yeah, that's the Orion Nebula, 1,600 light years away, 35 light years away. This I don't know if this would be considered a H2 region, but it is a very bright star forming region in our galaxy. And you've taken really wide field images of Orion, the entire constellation of Orion. Like the Nebula M42 itself is really just a dense section of a much larger area of nebulosity in there called the Orion Molecular Cloud, or the OMC1. But Trevor's got some awesome images with your RA and other DSLRs where you got that expanse of the Barnard Loop and stuff. But I don't know if you want to elaborate on that anymore, Trevor.
It's just like M42 is working for us. And when I say us, the people that want more people to get into astronomy, because to have a naked eye nebula, one that's so approachable, so gratifying to photograph with nearly any gear, there it is. Like, it has a way of, captivating people that even aren't interested in astronomy like nothing else. Andromeda is similar, but this even more so because it is so bright and so spectacular. It was the first astrophoto I ever took, was putting a little point and shoot camera up to the eyepiece of my Dobsonian. And I remember I think it was 15-second exposure the thing maxed out on, and it was a purple glow, and I actually captured color, which of course I'd never seen through an eyepiece before. It just gets your blood pumping to look at it. It's absolutely, yeah, it's mind blowing.
And the first image of this actually wasn't captured until 1880, so it's not the world of astrophotography is still very, very new. But what we've been able to do from 1880 to now is pretty impressive. I mean, we've only been on the target right now for 2 minutes, and there's all kinds of detail down, right down in here. The trapezium, of course, where the main stars that are illuminating the nebula altogether are hiding, is blown out. But the fact that you can see all this dust and detail in there is ridiculous. I think it's pretty neat. So this is a good one to actually do filter comparisons on, where you can switch because it's so bright and all the different filters. This is one of them that I like having on there.
Yeah, and when people photograph Orion, rarely do you see it without the running man next door. It's almost like included. But the running man is really beautiful. I've always loved reflection nebulae, and to get those blues and purples, it's just got a lot of those cool colors in a color image that are so pretty. And
do you want to do a filter switch on this one?
Yeah, HA would be really cool.
Yeah, no, while we're hanging out talking shop, we can flip that around.
There's plenty of HA details in this area.
There's actually 700 stars inside of the Orion Nebula. If I had that infrared filter working, we'll try to get that working in the future, where you can shoot through the dust. If you've never had a chance, real quick, I don't know if Trevor, if you have one or not, it's really popular in planetary imaging as an IR pass filter that shuts out all the light except the infrared light. Try that on a bright deep sky object like Orion, and you'll be amazed how many bright stars are hiding in the dust, because that infrared filter allows it to cut out all the visible wavelengths, but allows the glowing light of the stars to pass through the dust, and it's really kind of an interesting thing to try.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I don't know how much that's being done in the astrophotography world, or I guess, like you said, it's really bright objects. It makes a lot of sense, but
M16, the Eagle, M17, I've done that. Very bright, hot objects is very good. There's
so as we see the stat come through on this hydrogen filter, the running man totally changes shape because it is largely a reflection nebula. So you're not seeing any of that at this point. You're just seeing the hydrogen portion of it. So it totally changes shape. And a really dynamic way to photograph Orion is to do an HA RGB image. So just a full color image with the added hydrogen details.
I think I have one
there's a lot of
floating
depth
in here somewhere. Find one that won't break the computer. There it is. So that's a LRGB and 7 hours of hydrogen added to the reds. So.
Yeah, I was thinking, Kev, if you ever did do, I know you like using your monochrome camera, but if you did color live stacking, if you did stick to a kind of a list of the brightest, most colorful objects, that would be kind of fun too. Stuff like the dumbbell and things that are bright and colorful. Sometimes it's neat to see color, but if we're going for that visual type of feel, a monochrome is the way to go.
Yeah, I don't know what second telescope is running. I know David's running next to us. We don't have the webcam up at the moment, but there is a second Esprit 150 in the observatory right now. And I know I think David's actually on it. David usually follows around with what I've got going on. I can actually switch to see what his scope is on right now. He is on Orion. He's doing a focus run right now.
You don't have to hijack his scope if you don't want to.
He said I could. So, hi, David. I'll let him get focused and stuff like that, but maybe we'll pull that up in a minute, because I know the next target on the list, I'll keep his setup there going off in the background. That's actually what I like to do, because my buddy David has a telescope right next to ours. Do I even have the webcam up? There it is. This is not recent. Let me finish this. Here's the two scopes that we're using tonight. Here's the live camera. You can see the dual esprits in there. A lot of times when I'm taking my images, like that Orion shot that you saw, what I'll do, and this is strictly first world problem, because the telescopes are exactly the same. The one on the far pier is the one we're using tonight. That's the Esprit 150 with the monochrome. And then David's telescope, on the far left, on the back pier closest to the camera, that's another Esprit 150 with a one-shot color version. A lot of times, to speed things up, I'll shoot luminance on the far telescope and color of the same object on David's telescope and combine them to get my final shots. It goes a lot faster. I can get more done in one night.
I'd say so.
I'm not saying you should go out and buy two of the exact same things, but it doesn't hurt. So anyway, that is the Falling Eagle Observatory at Skies Away remote. If you want to know more about it, you can go online and check it out on Facebook or Instagram. So.
Yeah, so that answers the debate of, should you get a color or a mono camera? Just get both.
When in doubt. So, David's doing a live stack right now. Here is a live stack color of Orion right now from David's telescope right next door. So there is your color shot of Andromeda from David. Thanks, David, for having that up and running and chasing along with us tonight. It's very, very helpful. But there is the equivalent camera in color. We could probably stretch it a little bit if he lets me kind of mess with it. Go down to the scale here. Pull this up a little bit.
Look at the blues in the Running Man. I love that.
Yeah. So this is 1 minute. Those are two 30-second exposures. Way better than my first shot looked. So
better than any Orion shot I took for the first 3 years.
Right.
60 seconds.
That's pro level right there. So,
but yeah, that's worth talking about as well. Like this setup, this is a large, sharp, beautiful refractor telescope. One of the best color cameras you can get on the market right now under Bortle 2 skies. So it really does make life a lot easier. You have to have set your expectations depending on your conditions and your gear. Like you just can't get a shot like this from the city with your DSLR camera and a refractor right away. You just have to work for it a little harder.
Yep. And I don't want to, it's spoiled to have the remote telescopes like this. It's a lot of work to maintain a system like this because unlike, I've shot in the backyard. Trevor shoots, obviously, his whole channel is about AstroBackyard. But you can't just go out into the backyard and smack the telescope when it's not listening to you, which happens a lot. If you've never yelled at your telescope, you're not an astrophotographer. But in a remote scenario, you can't do that. It takes a lot of trust, and unfortunately, the prices are coming down on equipment to get that to do it, but it is a very complex setup, and it's taken months to get these two telescope systems running to the way, and you have to make sure there is no cables that are going to get tied up on anything as well, because you will tear the camera out.
Absolutely. I know how much work it was for you to get this set up to where it's at, the amount of time and troubleshooting, and others that deal with remote observatories. Like it has to be bulletproof because you're not there, right? So everything has to work perfectly.
That's kind of why we wanted to do the virtual star parties this way, because there's a lot of people that I understand that from working with Skywatcher and stuff that because I do this professionally, I have the privilege to use certain things, but I want to share that with people as much as possible because it's like, yeah, here's this telescope that no one gets to really use, and now we've got 100 of you hanging out tonight. Now we're down to 70, but it's getting late. We're almost done, but this is the best way possible to where we can share the system with you and explore all these cool things. and kind of bring you along for the ride. So it's not just some other telescope tucked away at an observatory that you'll never get to use. So this is kind of that middle ground where we can share all that. Next target, it's already on it. I wanted to get it going. We jump right to hydrogen alpha because this telescope system just buries this when it comes up. Is the Horsehead, one of my favorites. I never get tired of it. And your latest video talks about how to shoot this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So second latest, I just did Rosette, which is in the same sort of neighborhood. But before that was the Horsehead, and again, another crowd pleaser. And hydrogen, yes, this is, it just jumps off the screen.
Here she comes. There it is.
Yeah.
Not bad for 60 seconds. I meant to elaborate a little bit more on each target tonight. It's a little different having a co-host tonight, so the vibe changes in a more positive way because I'm not having to basically talk for 2 hours straight and about random things. But I want to go back to Orion really quick. Orion is really easy for anybody getting started. It's the perfect object. The Horsehead is right next door to Orion, and everyone thinks it's super duper easy because it's on covers of books, and why can't I see it? It's really challenging to see visually. But for astrophotography, it's like a walk in the park with the right equipment. And yeah, so anyway,
yeah,
there's
like for the beginner astrophotographers, you're gonna go after the Horsehead, probably right after Orion. It's that iconic image you've seen on the cover of books and everything, and it has that factor of you've seen it before so many times, and to see it on your own camera screen taken yourself is such a thrill. It's like that, oh my god, it's real, it's actually there, like I just took this picture. It definitely has that going for it.
Yeah, and the Horsehead's a great target for beginners, especially when you're doing monochrome work, because you can put an H-alpha filter like what we're doing right now, and it pops up because it's immensely bright. And actually, let me break this down for you real quick. It's not the Horsehead Nebula. There's several parts to this region. First off, you have the Flame Nebula. This is the bright star Alnitak. It's in
so bright right now.
Yeah, if we put the luminance filter in, it's like blinding. But the H-alpha filter really suppresses it really well. But that's Alnitak. That's the bottom star of the belt of Orion. You could walk out probably right, well, except for Trevor, because the skies suck and he'll freeze to death out there, which means no more AstroBackyard. And Rudy will be really depressed. Ashley would be really upset too. But, we all know how Rudy would feel about it. So, but yeah, Alnitak, really easy to find the object. But I'm not even on the right page of my notes. Let's go up here. There we go. Looking at the next one. But let's see. I can't remember all this stuff, guys. But Alnitak is about 1,000 light years in front of the nebulas that we're seeing there. There's another satellite. But then there's the Flame Nebula, which is actually NGC 2024. There's another little nebula right down in here. That's NGC 2023. And then we have IC 434, which is the emission portion of the Horsehead, which is this nebulosity in the back here. And
without
then
that, it wouldn't be nearly as special.
Yeah.
IC 434 doesn't get the credit it deserves.
Well, it's really cool when you get a lot of H-alpha data because it looks like paintbrush strokes in the nebula. There's this really delicate detail in there. So
very pretty. The best thing about this region in the astrophotography world is that it has everything. It has every color going on. It has bright stars, it has small stars, it has that intense red, pink hydrogen, but then the Flame Nebula is more pale and kind of yellow. And then there's some reflection nebula areas that are those deep, cool blues as well. So, it's a very, commonly framed way to do it. My last photo of it was done that way, but it's like it has almost the full spectrum of colors in space all in one spot. It's really beautiful.
Here's a HA RGB shot of
this.
You
have a great shot.
So there it is.
Yes.
That's
You know what I mean?
color off of David's telescope and hydrogen off of our telescope mixed in. So
Like you've got all areas covered there, and it's to see the contrasting flame nebula, how pale and kind of yellowish it is compared to the other areas is interesting.
yeah, and I wish I had a wider field. You've got all kinds of really crazy wide field glass in your disposal, right? We will here soon, um, but yeah, that I wish we could get, because there's this whole section of the nebula that goes up and out of the frame there. It's crazy how extended. But this is also part of that Orion OMC cloud, like the Orion Nebula is involved in. They're practically connected if they're wide enough. But you can start to see kind of where that paint stroke kind of look is coming from in there. But yeah, that's just a cool one there. So yeah, that's the Horsehead Nebula. That was actually found in it was discovered in 1889, but it was first recorded in 1888 by Wilhelmina Fleming. A woman actually got this on a photographic plate from Harvard College. And then we have E.E. Barnard, who's really like the father of modern day astrophotography. And he's the one that discovered all these dark nebulas, the Barnard, and that's where you get B33, the Horsehead, because it's a dark nebula, which is a pillar of dust basically blocking light from IC 434 in the back. He's really to thank for a lot of these dark nebulas, and modern day astrophotography is kind of where he came in. But yeah, that is the Horsehead Nebula. I know we're getting to about the 2-hour mark, Trevor. It's getting late where you are. We have 2 targets left. I don't know if you want to do both or if you just want to round it out with the most recent one you've shot.
Yeah, why don't we'll end it off with the flower.
I'd rather end it with a bang than, not that this isn't a bang right here, but I'd rather it's kind of, I didn't even plan this. Trevor posted his video the other day of his most recent video, and it just kind of ended up being the same target. So
yeah, this one's cool because the embedded star cluster within an emission nebula, and that cavity in the center, it's very symmetrical.
Okay. Luminance or H alpha?
I feel like under these skies, luminance would be really nice.
I can always flip it, but let's see. All right, guys. So for those of you who have been hanging out with us, this is the last target for the night. Thanks for being with us this evening. Big thanks to Trevor for hanging out. It's the first time we've had a guest here. Trevor, thanks for being here, staying up late with me. Big thanks to Ashley for letting you hang out with us this evening, especially on a cold night. I'm sure she'd rather be spending time with you. Big thanks to my wife Melissa too, who's letting me do this too. So but yeah, this is Focus Astronomy's star stream. These are virtual star parties. We do this once a month right here at the Focus Astronomy YouTube channel. So join us next month. We are going to have Richard Wright from Software Bisque, another awesome imager, on talking about a whole nother set of objects. So definitely join us then. We will try to figure out if we found James Webb in the images. We'll try to process those data sets and get them blinked and put together. But yeah, so our last target tonight, appropriately, is the Rosette Nebula in Monoceros, actually not far from where the James Webb is right now. But Trevor just did an awesome video on this. If you want to go to his channel, check it out. It's just a little channel called AstroBackyard. But Trevor, thank you very much for hanging out with me tonight, and let's jump right into the Rosette. So
yeah, this is so much fun. Thank you for having me. Like I said, there's I can't think of anything I'd rather be doing on a Saturday night than this. It's funny, I keep looking at the your system tray. Oh, there you go. It's like, oh, it's only 9 o'clock. Wait a minute, that's not my time. It's midnight.
Yeah. Yeah, trying to plan this is really difficult with different people, because it's like, wait, you're here and they're there, and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so that looks great in luminance. I think we chose the right filter. So you can see that open cluster. Do you have it listed here? Yeah,
Yeah, the
NG.
cluster's 2244, which a lot of people just, that's usually what you would go to find the Rosette, but that's not the nebula itself. So
Yeah, yeah, and you can already see it, that cavity in the center, kind of framing out those stars.
what's interesting about it is that cavity in the center there is actually formed from the star cluster. So the star cluster is NGC 2244. There's a lot of NGC numbers associated with the Rosette, because there's different regions of it. But 2244 is the cluster, which is an open cluster. It actually formed from the nebula itself. The surrounding gas around the stars is glowing because of the stars that's doing most of the illumination. A lot of the gas in there is about 10 million degrees Fahrenheit, so toasty. But that center cavity that Trevor's talking about, which is really apparent in Oxygen 3 when you shoot it, and narrowband, that's 30 light years across, on top of the 130 light year diameter of the entire nebula itself. So it's a big target, and that's got a really cool like tail that kind of jets off out into space too.
Yeah, that's what I was really hoping to capture, with my latest image. And just because I centered the target, classic, right? I cropped out much of that tail because it really does extend, in the one direction. So I didn't get it the way I wanted to, but really satisfying nebula to photograph. And when you see those wide field shots of Orion, you see Barnard's Loop, and you can actually see, if you're wide enough, you can see the Rosette in Monoceros kind of right next to Orion to the left of it.
Yeah, the Rosette is actually one of the big H2 regions in our galaxy. So like what we saw in NGC 2043 earlier, this is one of those in our galaxy, just we're a lot closer to it. But it's actually a really easy object to do from in town with the right filters, like the narrowband filters and stuff like that. It's a very easy target for a lot of people to get. So,
yeah, the bright
especially
ones.
with these small refractors now.
Yeah, the big bright nebulas are your friend when you're in the city.
Let me just stretch this up a bit just to see what's hiding in there. A little noisy, but they're and if those of you don't know what noise is, it's kind of the grain in the image. That's where you take longer exposures and stack them, and it cleans up real nice. But the fact that this is like 3 minutes doesn't suck. So, but yeah, that's the Rosette Nebula, 5,200 light years away from the Earth. Go check it out. It's definitely worth being one of those nebulas this time of year that you should definitely go check out. It's actually fairly easy to do visually too, in modest telescopes. So it's not difficult. Obviously, to get all that faint stuff is different, but
yeah, that star cluster would stand out, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's doable. But in moderately dark skies, 6 or 8 inch telescope, probably with a UHC or O3, it's doable. The nebulosity is faint, but you can do it. But then you throw a camera on it, game over. So easy. So
yeah, it's been 2 years since I've looked through a decent scope under dark skies, because I don't really own any of these big visual scopes. So the star parties, physical star parties, is usually where I would do that. I really miss the sight of a nebula through a giant scope under dark skies, and I'm looking forward to hopefully doing that later this year.
Hopefully we will return to normal. So, well, right on, guys. It's late. We've been doing this for 2 hours. That's a good block of time to shave off. If you ever want to go back and check any of it out, it's all been recorded right here at the Focus Astronomy YouTube channel. Trevor, I think it's that time to just say goodnight. So.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, man. I'm so fortunate to be able to look through this system and enjoy all these objects with you. I'm so glad you asked me to join you.
Yeah, no, well, hopefully we can do it again here soon. A little bit different than talking about, gear all the time. But thanks all of you for hanging out with us. I will be back with Richard Wright next month, so join me for that. There's already a link on upcoming streams. It's already active and ready to go. So please do join me next month. I appreciate it. We'll definitely have Trevor back. It was fun hanging out with Trevor, as always. But please have a good night. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Don't freeze to death. Knock on wood. And other than that, thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks, guys.
All right. See you guys. Take care. Bye.